You think that the cliff was over and the stock market said hooray and they went up 300 and some points and everybody clapped. But boy, the era of bare-knuckle fighting has just started, and Washington barely reached a deal to avoid the fiscal cliff. But the next financial crisis is just around the corner, and that one is going to be much tougher to prevent.
Pat, that's because the next time the White House and Congress have to deal with cutting spending. And as George Thomas reports, the stake will be very high: the future of America.
This week's fiscal cliff agreement may have averted one crisis, but the work to avoid an economic disaster is only just beginning. Experts say the $620 million in higher taxes due over the next decade from wealthy Americans will barely touch deficits still to come.
We've got nothing on the table right now that talks about any of the fundamental problems that we face, which includes too much spending, too much money printing, and too much borrowing.
Among the issues that the fiscal cliff deal failed to touch on, in only 2 months, painful across-the-board spending cuts to the Pentagon and domestic programs are set to kick in. And the government is on track to reach its limit on borrowing unless Congress allows President Obama to increase it. This puts the U.S. dangerously close to defaulting on U.S. obligations for the first time ever. President Obama says he hopes these issues can be addressed with a little less drama than the fiscal cliff deal.
I will not have another debate with this Congress over whether or not they should pay the bills that they've already racked up.
But many Republicans feel they were backed into a corner with this fiscal cliff deal, and they refuse to budge on increasing the debt limit without drastic cuts to federal spending.
We're adding $4 billion a day to the debt.
Rome wasn't destroyed in a day. It takes a long time to run down a large economy and run down a large empire. We are on that glide path now, and there's no reason to believe this is going to change.
George Thomas, CBN News.
That's frightening, and it takes a long time to run down a great empire. The wealth that has been accumulated in our society since its founding, the hard work, the labor, the entrepreneurship, the creativity of capital, the labor that has gone into it, has amassed enormous amounts of money. And now we have a Congress and a president who is spending it as fast as they can on wasteful programs. You say, what is wrong with you people? It's crazy the things that they're spending money for. And, you know, we've got this big thing about Sandy, and the people in the Northeast are screaming that you ignored Sandy. But Sandy had relief for Alaska. They had relief for the Northwest. That hurricane and storm didn't hit Alaska. It hit New York. But it's loaded with pork, as usual. The last bill we just finished was loaded with pork. Now, here's what it says in Proverbs. I was reading this today, the wisdom of Solomon. There is desirable treasure and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man squanders it. And you've got a foolish man who's in charge of the government, and you've got foolish men who are in charge of both parties in the United States Congress. And I wish we had a conference of the prudent. Somehow a new conference would put together of Democrats and Republicans and say these are the wise men or these are the prudent, and the prudent say we're not going to spend things. You could just take a budget and just take a black pen and say we take this out. We're not going to spend it anymore. Just exit out, exit out, exit out. Go through the budget and say we're not going to do this. Just stop it. Stop it. We don't have to defend Germany, for example, against Russia. We've got troops there since World War II, and we're spending money, millions and billions of dollars on divisions in Germany to defend Germany. We don't have to defend Germany any longer. We have a footprint all over the world. We have to be more selective, but the people in Washington aren't selective about anything. I want to show it to you one more time. Proverbs 21:20. There is desirable treasure and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man squanders it. We've just opened a new treasure of oil here in America. That shale oil will put us on a path to exceeding Saudi Arabia. But you can't I don't care how much oil you've got coming out of the ground, it's not going to be in the trillions of dollars, and we're wasting trillions. And it seems like we have people in charge of Washington who are not concerned about a deficit in excess of $1 trillion a year. And this coming administration, they're looking at another $4 to $5 trillion. So we'll be past 21 trillion. And those numbers are so high that you can't work your way out of it. And the other alternative is to inflate the money or to default. And Standard & Poor's and other rating agencies are going to start downgrading our debt. And now they're talking about a fight over the debt ceiling. Well, I mean, the debt ceiling. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the new Congress opens today with prayer. And one new member will be sworn in on a different religious book. It's not the Bible. Lee Webb has that story.
That's right, Pat. New and old lawmakers are being sworn in today for the first session of the 113th Congress. CBN News interviewed the House chaplain, Father Patrick Conroy, ahead of a bipartisan prayer gathering. This will be the first time he's officiating that event. The service includes passages from the Old and New Testaments and a reading from the Quran. The chaplain told CBN News his message will remind lawmakers they are called to be servants.
Being a member of Congress and perhaps being a person of faith is about understanding oneself as a servant, not as a politician or not as a person with power and authority.
Congress is also getting its first Hindu member, Democrat Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii. She's being sworn in using the Hindu scriptures instead of the Bible. She succeeds Congresswoman Mazi Hirono, who is also from Hawaii. She was elected to the Senate, and she'll be the first Buddhist in that chamber. At the top of the agenda for the new Congress, a disaster relief bill for victims of Superstorm Sandy. New Jersey Republican Governor Chris Christie blasted House Speaker John Boehner for taking so long to bring up a vote on this aid package. He accuses House Republicans of focusing on internal politics and what he called palace intrigue instead of voting on the bill. He criticized Democrats as well.
66 days and counting. Shame on you. Shame on Congress.
I can't remember a time when we had a very serious storm, tornado, fire, flood, where we did not act. This Congress is apparently leaving town without responding to that emergency.
A spokesman for House Speaker Boehner says he's committed to passing the bill this month. Boehner says he didn't schedule the vote earlier because of the fight for the fiscal cliff. The owners of Hobby Lobby have donated a Northfield, Massachusetts campus founded by Christian evangelist D.L. Moody. This is a story CBN News has been following for some time. The arts and crafts retail chain says it made an irrevocable donation of the property to the National Christian Foundation. NCF is a nonprofit charity based in Georgia. NCF will now continue the work of finding a long-term owner for the campus to honor the legacy of D.L. Moody. Hobby Lobby originally gave the property to Grand Canyon University, a for-profit Christian school based in Arizona. Grand Canyon later backed out of the deal. Students from Sandy Hook Elementary School returned to class for the first time today since the massacre that killed 20 of their classmates and 6 adults. The school remains a crime scene, so officials reopened a closed middle school in the neighboring town of Monroe, Connecticut. It's even been renamed Sandy Hook Elementary. The bus route has been marked with green ribbons to the colors of Sandy Hook to honor those victims. A familiar face will oversee the school and its students. Former Sandy Hook principal Donna Page retired 2 years ago but is returning to help in this transition. Local police will be patrolling the grounds to provide security. A lost tribe has come home to Israel, and some believe the return could be part of biblical prophecy. CBN's Chris Mitchell was at Ben Gurion Airport where more than 50 members of the Bnei Menashe tribe made history.
Their arrival was tearful and emotional.
I feel like I'm home.
I feel so excited. I feel so overwhelmed. I'm extremely unexplainable, you know, like deep in my heart. I feel like crying.
And this group is just the first of a long-awaited migration. Nearly 2,000 tribe members live in Israel, but 5 years ago the government stopped their return. Now a recent decision permits all the Bnei Menashe, about 7,000, to return.
The 10 tribes may have been lost to us for many centuries, but they were never lost in terms of their identity.
Michael Freund of Shavei Israel worked for years to help bring about this moment. He believes the Bnei Menashe return fulfills biblical prophecy.
The prophet Isaiah says, Al tira ki idcha ani, fear not, for I am with you, God says. Mimizrach avi zarecha, from the east I will bring your descendants, your descendants. These are the descendants of Israel, and they are coming back from the east. It is as if the headline of today was written by Isaiah the prophet 25 or 2,600 years ago.
The Assyrian Empire exiled the tribe of Menashe almost 3,000 years ago. Although they settled in northeast India, tribe members kept their Jewish roots for more than 2,000 years. Several Christian organizations helped bring them home.
And in fact, the Hebrew prophet said when God gathered his Jewish people back from all the ends of the earth in the last days, that there would be Gentiles helping and bringing them back. God said, I'll beckon to the Gentiles. And so we have this invitation from God himself to be involved in this aliyah.
Another nearly 300 are scheduled to arrive in January, with thousands more yet to come. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Ben Gurion Airport, Tel Aviv.
Pat, back to you.
Prophecy being fulfilled before our eyes. Isn't that amazing?
I love it, Pat. You know, that's one of the things I love about CBN is that, you know, I love to study the Bible, as of course many of us do, and just to be able to see what's going on around the world and see the fulfillment of biblical prophecy is just, it's a gift.
Well, the big story was the Philoshes that came out of Africa. You know, that was a big tribe that they brought home, and here these people in northern India, I mean, God's reaching out and he's bringing them in. He's sending the catchers to catch them and to bring them home.
The State Department is considering whether to label the radical Nigerian Islamic sect Boko Haram as a terrorist organization. So far, the department isn't ready to do so. The group is blamed for killing nearly 800 people in 2012 alone, according to the Associated Press. The Christian Association of Nigerian Americans wants the U.S. to call Boko Haram terrorists. They say that could help end international funding and support for the group. But the State Department says it's designated some Boko Haram leaders as terrorists last year and isn't sure if labeling the group is the most effective way to do so. The Arabic news network Al Jazeera has bought the U.S. cable channel Current TV, the network co-founded by former Vice President Al Gore. Al Jazeera has tried for several years to reach a larger audience in the United States, but this new acquisition might not help. Soon after the deal was confirmed, Time Warner Cable, the nation's second largest TV operator, dropped Current from its lineup. Still, the new channel is scheduled to begin broadcasting in 2013. Well, you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.